The topic we're diving into today is something that's been weighing heavily on Warriors fans. For a while now, Jonathan Kuminga's role and whether Golden State missed the ideal moment to move on from him, to really understand what's happening. Right now, we need to rewind and examine how we got to this point. Let's start back in January of 2024. If you're a hardcore Warriors fan, you already know exactly what I'm referring to. Kuminga was actually playing some of his best basketball ever during that stretch, really putting together a strong run of games, scoring consistently, being impactful on both ends, and finally looking like the player many envisioned he could become. But then came that infamous night against the Nuggets. In a tight game that the Warriors were controlling, Steve Kerr suddenly benched Kuminga due to a couple of defensive lapses. We all remember how that game ended, Nikola Jokic hitting an absurd half-court buzzer beater, breaking the hearts of Warriors fans everywhere. But the real damage done that night wasn't just losing a game they should have won, it was the fracture that opened up between Kuminga and the team, especially Steve Kerr. After the game, Kuminga's frustrations leaked publicly, suggesting he had lost faith in Kerr. Now here's where it gets messy. And the NBA players criticizing coaches is nothing new. We've seen plenty of stars do it openly, from LeBron James to Russell Westbrook, guys who've earned the right, players who've been consistent all-stars and who carry significant weight behind their words. But Kuminga, at that stage of his career, simply wasn't in that position. He hadn't yet proven enough to call out a championship-winning coach publicly. It didn't sit right with many, and it immediately felt like a red flag. In retrospect, it's clear that January incident wasn't just about one game or one coaching decision. It was about a much deeper fundamental disconnect between Kuminga's vision of his role and what the Warriors were willing or even able to provide. Looking back, it becomes increasingly obvious that the front office missed a huge opportunity there. January of 2024 was arguably the best window they had to trade Kuminga. At that moment, his stock was probably at its peak. He was producing numbers, consistently showing flashes of genuine potential to become a special player, someone physically gifted enough that defenders simply couldn't handle him in isolation. His raw talent and athleticism were on full display, and there was legitimate buzz around the league about his upside. But instead of capitalizing on that momentum and making a move that might have benefited both parties, the Warriors held on, perhaps still clinging to the idea of blending their timelines. A decision fueled by organizational confidence, or let's just call it what it really was, arrogance. The Warriors at the time genuinely believed they could successfully blend to drastically different timelines, maintaining championship contention around aging legends like Steph Curry and Draymond Green, while simultaneously grooming younger players like Kuminga, Wiseman, and Moody. It sounds fantastic in theory, right? Win titles, now develop your future stars, and never truly have to go through a rebuild. But as we've seen, reality rarely cooperates with ambitious plans. What they didn't factor into their grand vision was the human element. Young players, especially those with Kuminga's profile, need freedom, extended minutes, and space to make mistakes without constantly looking over their shoulder to see if they're about to be yanked out of the game. That's exactly the kind of environment the Warriors couldn't provide. They were in win-oh mode every single season. Every game mattered, every possession was scrutinized, and every mistake was magnified. Kuminga, for better or worse, became the face of that contradiction. There's an important context here. It's not just about Kuminga not fitting into the Warriors' vision. It's about the Warriors being unwilling or maybe unable to provide what Kuminga genuinely needed. He needed significant playing time without fear of repercussions from mistakes. He needed a chance to play through struggles, to learn on the fly, to grow organically through extended minutes on the court. But on a veteran-laden team that had just come off multiple championship runs, that simply wasn't feasible. Kerr and the Warriors coaching staff had very little tolerance for errors because the stakes were so high. When Kuminga made a defensive lapse, he got benched. When he turned the ball over, he was criticized or lost trust. Meanwhile, veterans like Curry understandably got more leeway. It was an impossible standard for a developing player to meet consistently. Let's also talk about the missed opportunity in terms of trade value. Had the Warriors moved Kuminga at that January peak, they'd have found themselves in an advantageous position. Any team acquiring him then would have had ample time, roughly 18 months, to evaluate his game before making any significant financial commitments. That window of evaluation is crucial in NBA trades involving young talent, because it gives a franchise time to decide if that player fits their long-term vision before committing major financial resources. Now, however, the Warriors find themselves in a far trickier spot. Any team interested in Kuminga today must not only trade assets to get him, but immediately commit significant financial resources to him potentially in the nine-figure range, without having had much opportunity to assess him thoroughly. That alone reduces his market value significantly, creating a Los situation. The Warriors can't get adequate compensation, and Kuminga may never land in the environment he truly needs to thrive, and let's be honest, this isn't just hindsight talking. Even in real time, many of us who closely followed this team could sense that this two-time L-line approach felt ambitious at best and unrealistic at worst. Kuminga, talented though he has always felt like a player whose developmental trajectory would be difficult to accelerate artificially. His growth needed a situation far different than what the Warriors could provide. Had they recognized this earlier, perhaps we wouldn't even be having this conversation today. There's another layer worth considering: the organizational arrogance mentioned earlier. The Warriors, understandably confident after their sustained success, probably felt they could do what other teams historically couldn't: blend young prospects seamlessly into a championship core without missing a beat. But as we've seen repeatedly in NBA history, attempting to thread that needle usually ends poorly. Look around the league, teams rarely win titles while heavily developing top young prospects simultaneously. It's one thing to add younger, complementary pieces, energy guys, or role players, but it's another entirely to try and grow potential future all-stars alongside established superstars. They underestimated just how difficult it was to satisfy both timelines simultaneously. The Warriors fell victim to their own ambition, convinced they could rewrite the script. But reality eventually catches up to everyone, and now they're dealing with the fallout from decisions they could have and probably should have addressed earlier. This brings us to where we are today, summer of 2025. And Kuminga's future is more uncertain than ever. The idea of him returning on a short-term contract, perhaps a one-year $20 million deal, has been floated. On the surface, it might seem reasonable, a temporary solution to keep options open. But dig a bit deeper and the problems become obvious. Kuminga, already unhappy and feeling misused, would have every incentive to prioritize individual numbers and proving himself to other teams over fitting into Golden State's team-first philosophy. The incentive structure would be completely misaligned, potentially leading to further tension, chemistry issues, and distractions. Exactly what a veteran team chasing championships doesn't need. The alternative sign-and trade scenarios involving teams like Phoenix or Sacramento might feel underwhelming initially, but realistically it's probably the best option at this point. The Warriors aren't going to get maximum value back because Kuminga's trade value has dipped significantly compared to that January 2024 peak. Yet finding a solid rotation piece who complements the core might still salvage the situation somewhat. Players like Devin Carter or Keon Ellis have been mentioned as possibilities, young guards with defensive capabilities who could slot into roles more naturally fitting Golden State's needs. While neither is a splashy addition, both represent exactly the type of rotation piece championship-caliber teams often rely upon: guys who make winning plays, defend aggressively, hit open shots, and contribute without needing the ball or spotlight constantly. Ultimately, what this saga reinforces is the importance of realistic self-assessment within NBA front offices. The Warriors have done remarkable things, reshaped the league, and provided unforgettable memories. But even they aren't immune to missteps. Kuminga's situation is a stark reminder that sometimes even the smartest organizations need to recognize when to pivot, when to admit an idea isn't working, and act swiftly before it damages team chemistry or depreciates assets. The summer air in Santa Clara is already thick with speculation and possibilities as training camp approaches. The Warriors front office and coaching staff must navigate an intricate web of roster construction, salary cap, logistics, and locker room dynamics. Behind closed doors, the conversations pivot around questions that once felt hypothetical, but now carry a sense of urgency. Which veterans will take a pay cut? How can the team balance shooting, defense, and athleticism? And most importantly, how do you integrate new pieces without disrupting the chemistry that has kept Golden State at the pinnacle for the better part of a decade? Even the most astute executives admit that the margin for error is razor thin, particularly when your core stars are entering their mid-30s and the NBA landscape is evolving at a dizzying pace. One of the biggest puzzles revolves around finding role players who can actually thrive in Kerr's system. Over the years, the Warriors have succeeded by blending a handful of superstars with complementary specialists, versatile wings who can defend multiple positions, knock down open shots, and move off the ball with the same precision as a well-oiled machine. But those types of players are as rare as unicorns, which is why Golden State has often been willing to overpay in free agency or sacrifice draft capital in trades. This offseason, however, the budget is tighter and assets are dwindling. There's no longer the luxury of a mid-level exception that can be deployed recklessly, nor the prospect of a top 5 pick that can be flipped for a seasoned veteran. Instead, the Warriors must mine value from undervalued veterans and mid-tier free agents, hoping to unearth a diamond in the rough who can slot seamlessly into the rotation and buy enough minutes for Curry and Green to rest without compromising defensive effort or three-point spacing. From a strategic standpoint, Golden State's ideal blueprint involves securing at least 2 perimeter defenders who could reliably guard the opposing team's best wings or guards. The reality, though, is that most of those players command more money than the Warriors can afford, or they're already signed long-term elsewhere. That leaves G League standouts and off-bench veteran contracts and obscure international signings options that historically carry a greater risk of failure. The front office must weigh that risk against the need for depth and consider whether it makes more sense to stretch the salary cap in pursuit of a marginal upgrade, or to maintain flexibility for future trade deadlines. Complicating matters further is the looming luxury tax threshold. Golden State has grown accustomed to absorbing hefty tax payments in exchange for championship contention, but the financial toll is beginning to impact owner Joe Lacauve's willingness to clear space for risky moves. While there's no doubt that Lacauve will back his team when it matters most, the specter of diminishing returns and escalating tax bills means every dollar must be spent with surgical precision. Meanwhile, the coaching staff faces its own set of challenges. Steve Kerr's philosophy has always emphasized ball movement, spacing, and defensive communication, but those tenets rely on players who buy in unconditionally. Bringing in new faces always risks diluting that shared mindset, particularly when those players come with different backgrounds, egos, and expectations. Balancing the minutes between seasoned veterans and hungry newcomers is an art form Kerr has mastered, but this summer he's tasked with integrating talent that might not be fully suited to his style. Will he lean on motion offense principles with less trusted shooters or simplify the playbook to accommodate less experienced personnel? The answers will have ripple effects throughout the season, influencing everything from how the team executes in late-game situations to how it recovers from the inevitable mid-season slump. In the background, there's also the whispered possibility of a blockbuster deal, one that could reshape the roster overnight. We've seen whispers about Phoenix's desire to shed salary or Sacramento's interest in retooling around certain core pieces. But blockbusters come with the same caveats as free agent gambles. They require significant capital, precise scouting, and willingness to part with beloved players or draft assets. The Warriors front office must ask itself whether a single transformative trade is worth mortgaging the future, or whether incremental improvements via cheap role players are preferable. History shows that a single splashy move can catapult a team back into title contention, but it can just as easily backfire, leaving a franchise hamstrung by lopsided contracts and unmet expectations. Beyond X's and O's, there's the human element. Chemistry cannot be engineered in a laboratory. It exists or it doesn't, and it's extraordinarily difficult to predict how new teammates will gel with established stars. Warriors veterans are well-versed in the team's culture of selflessness and accountability, but when new players arrive, especially those entering larger roles than they're accustomed to, there's often a learning curve. Off-the-court personalities clash, habits emerge, and the locker room hierarchy must be renegotiated. Kerr and his veteran leaders face the delicate task of welcoming fresh faces while maintaining standards, ensuring that late-night film sessions, practice competitiveness, and even road trip camaraderie remain consistent. It's a behind-the-scenes balancing act that rarely makes headlines, but often determines whether a roster thrives or fractures under pressure. On the flip side, integrating new blood can spark rejuvenation. Veteran teams often benefit from the energy and hunger of younger players eager to prove themselves on a big stage. The Warriors' younger core players like Moses Moody, Brandon Bajimski, and Trace Jackson-Davis may yet blossom into key contributors, provided they receive clear development paths and sufficient opportunity to impact games. Balancing their growth against the need for immediate wins is perhaps the single toughest needle to thread. Give too much responsibility to unproven players and the team risks late-game collapses, and fractured rotations give to little and those same players may stagnate or lose confidence. In that light, the Warriors' leadership must decide whether to lean into a gradual retooling, allowing the younger core to play more even if it costs them some regular season victories, or to push aggressively for another title run, potentially sacrificing long-term upside for short-term gains. Financial considerations also cast a long shadow over these decisions. With multiple players entering restricted or unrestricted free agency in upcoming years, the Warriors must remain mindful of future cap implications. Every mid-level deal signed today could limit their ability to resign emerging stars or pursue marquee acquisitions later on. The salary cap landscape is shifting, with new collective bargaining agreements potentially altering exception rules and tax thresholds. Savvy front offices are already projecting those changes and positioning themselves accordingly. But in the present moment, Golden State's latitude feels narrower than it did just a couple of seasons ago. The luxury of overspending on ancillary talent has diminished, and the imperative to groom in-house prospects has never been more pressing. As July heats up, one thing is certain: the Warriors' offseason will be defined as much by what they don't do as by what they ultimately decide. The quiet signings of underrated veterans, the last-minute trades that never materialize, the under-30 training camp invites each represents a calculated gamble on finding the right fit. And all the while, the basketball world will watch, eager to determine whether Golden State's front office can once again pull off the impossible, blending championship pedigree with developmental imperatives. There's no shortage of skeptics who believe the window has closed, that the era of dynastic dominance is over, and that the Warriors are destined to fade. But if there's one quality that has defined this franchise since its inception, it's resilience in the face of doubt. Whether that resilience will manifest in another title run, a deep playoff push, or a patient rebuild remains to be seen, but the blueprint is being drawn right now. In offices, on chalkboards, and in late-night video sessions, the decisions made today will shape the trajectory of the franchise for years to come, setting the stage for the next chapter in Golden State basketball. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. A surprising buzz is swirling around the NBA as rumors suggest that Al Horford, the seasoned veteran known for his versatility and leadership, might be closing in on a deal with the Golden State Warriors. Sources close to the situation hint that Horford, a player with a wealth of playoff experience and championship pedigree, could be the missing piece. The Warriors are eyeing to push them over the top and secure their long-awaited sixth title. The Warriors, who have been dominant in the past decade, are reportedly eager to infuse their roster with a blend of experience and defensive toughness, and Horford fits that mold perfectly. Known for his high basketball IQ, ability to stretch the floor, and stout defense in the paint, Horford could complement the Warriors' star-studded lineup in ways that may not be immediately obvious, but crucial for championship success, adding fuel to the speculation. Insiders claim Horford himself has expressed unwavering confidence in the team's championship prospects, boldly stating, "The Hexa is coming now," a reference to the Warriors potentially clinching their sixth NBA championship. This statement has only intensified the chatter among fans and analysts, who see this move as a strategic masterstroke if it comes to fruition. For the Warriors, who have been seeking to recalibrate their roster around their core stars while maintaining championship aspiration, Horford's rumored signing could signal a renewed dynasty in the making.